6 to order, please.
I will call the order for Buckeye.
I call to order Goodyear.
I call to order the City Council for the City of Litchfield Park. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I ask that each clerk will do their own roll call for their own meeting in alphabetical order. I'll ask that the Avondale City Clerk please do roll call.
Will our clerk call for Buckeye?
Mayor Rogers,
Present.
Vice Mayor Wolf,
present.
Councilmember Lynch,
Present.
Councilmember Earp, Councilmember Buster,
Here.
Councilmember Scott,
Present.
Councilmember Wise,
Here.
Okay. Linda, would you call the order for Buckeye?
Mayor Hall,
Present.
Vice Mayor Erweiler,
Present.
Councilman Mack,
Present.
Councilman Beard,
Present.
Councilwoman May,
Present.
Councilman Doster,
Present.
Councilman Garza.
Present.
Can I ask the city clerk if she would call the roll for the city of Goodyear? Here.
Here.
Councilmember Sousa,
Here.
Councilmember Antoniak,
Here.
Councilmember Scott,
Here.
Councilmember Holland,
Here.
Councilmember Lloyd.
Here.
Will the City Clerk of the City of Litchfield Park please do a roll call?
Mayor Thomas,
Here.
Vice Mayor Faith,
Here.
Councilmember Burrows,
Here.
Councilmember Mahoney,
Here.
Councilmember Musselwhite,
Present.
and I will note that Councilmember Stuckey is absent and Councilmember Burrow is absent.
At this time, we will have the call to the community. It is time for citizens to speak on a non-agenda item. Any member of the community wish to speak? I have one card here from Mr. Larry Core. Please take the mic, state your name and address for the record.
I'm Larry Coor, live at 164 East Campina Drive in Litchfield Park. It's a real pleasure to see 4 West Side cities and towns working together to reach a common goal. Please take a moment. Imagine a city west of Phoenix with a population of over 200,000 or more and growing, already in place today. Not Glendale with 218,000 or Peoria with 123,000, but a new city established with over 200,000 people. Imagine a city with a population as large as Chandler or Scottsdale or Glendale. Imagine a city with more land area than all the other cities in Maricopa County combined. Fellow West Side residents, we have the opportunity to create a city of over 200,000 people in the largest land area in Maricopa County. How, you ask? Combine into one municipal jurisdiction, Litchfield Park, Goodyear, Avondale, Gila Bend, Buckeye, El Mirage, Youngtown, Wickenburg, Tonopah, Tolleson, Sunrise, Sun City West, and all the unincorporated land in Maricopa County from these cities' boundaries to the western, southern, and northern borders of Maricopa County. With a city this size and population, we would have the power to get things accomplished in western Maricopa County. Imagine the power this city would have when it negotiates with county, state, and federal officials on I-10 matters and other matters affecting the West Side. Now is the time for action. Let's move forward and create this city.
Thank you, Mr. Court. Does anybody else wish to address the four councils on a non-agenda item? I've got that they wish to speak on agenda item number 4, and I will pass that on to the Buckeye. With that, we'll close the call to the community.
Thank you, Mayor Thomas. Before we enter the business part of our agenda, I'd like to identify some of the distinguished individuals in our audience. All levels of government have worked tirelessly to identify sources of funding to accelerate the widening of I-10. It is my privilege to introduce several individuals from the audience who have been supportive of our efforts and represent other levels of government. At the state level, our legislators recognize the need to accelerate the widening of I-10 and have introduced legislation to assist with the project. With us tonight, Senator Robert Blundu, Representative John Nelson, Representative Jerry Wiles, for the past 13 months, we have had ongoing discussions with members of the Arizona Congressional Delegation. With us this evening, Andy Jacobs, Regional Representative from the Office of Senator John Kyle. Carlos Sierra, State Director for Senator John McCain. We have also worked closely with individuals from the Maricopa Association of Governments and the Arizona Department of Transportation. We have sincerely appreciated their efforts on this project. With us tonight, I believe Dennis Smith is here. Is Dennis here? Dennis is from MAG. He's the chief of MAG. And the chief of MAG Transportation is Eric Anderson. And we're pleased to have the director from ADOT, Victor Mendez. Thank you very much for sharing this evening with us. Mayors and councils from the 4 Southwest Valley cities are proud to come together this evening to consider a resolution directed toward reducing congestion and improving safety in the most important transportation corridor in the valley. I would like to introduce the city manager from the city of Goodyear, who will present the background, purpose, and rationale for the resolution which will be discussed in the very near future.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayors and members of the councils, distinguished guests, members of the public. This evening we have an opportunity to take one more step down the long journey that we have started back in early 1900. Let's try the year 2005. Southwest Valley cities began to get together, and we began discussions with ADOT, with MAG, with the Federal Highway Administration, with Maricopa County, the congressional delegation, to figure out a way to make widening of I-10 a top priority. The MAG Transportation Improvement Plan dictates how you go about that process. And we have a responsibility to identify the capital funding and the interest sources by this month in order to impact something that is a congestion, safety, and other issues. And the way you do that is you have to comply with the MAG acceleration policy. It essentially says you find the capital money, you find interest monies, and you can begin construction far sooner than what you see on the screen here tonight. We're talking about advancing some of these projects as much as 7 years. In other instances, we're talking about advancing them 10 years beyond their current schedule in the MAG process. Why do we care? What's so important about this acceleration? Well, number one, it's all about the safety of our residents. We have, in our communities, the deadliest stretch in the country, in the county. And fatality rates in our area is as much as 10 times greater than the rest of the nation. It's about moving commerce and transportation from the West Coast to the East Coast, about moving it into and throughout this valley. It's about taking care of our air quality. Statistically, here's how we stack up against all the other states as it stretches the 2,000 miles across the United States, with the valley at 0.71, the Avondale-Goodyear area at 1.5, Goodyear proper at 2.0, and look at the rest of the nation, 0.19. This is what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to take the inside lanes and add 2 more lanes from Loop 101 out to Dysart, out to Cotton Lane, and then add 1 additional lane from Cotton Lane out to SR 85. To do that, we had to find some monies, and right now the maximum bonding level that we have to come up with is $215 million. It has to be 100% local share in terms of the interest rate. That amounts to about $66 million. We can have as much as $10 million in one particular year that we have to come up with. We may, over the life of the program, it's about $3,860,000. If we're fortunate enough, after the MAG acceleration policy works and there's extra monies in the program, then we might be able to see as much as 50% of that interest being paid by the program, the Prop 400 monies. But at the moment, we have to guess, worst case scenario, the 100%. But we could be as low as $32 million if the program can be advanced under the policy. The various segments was one of the ways we found in terms of the cost allocation, how to share that. And as you can see, the lion's share of those lanes are within the city of Goodyear. And that ends up resulting in the cost allocation. And we're recommending that when we enter into the intergovernmental agreements, that the city of Goodyear would be looking at 43%, that Buckeye would look at 31%, Avondale at 23%, and while Litchfield Park doesn't have any direct lanes, they've stepped up and said, look, we'll participate at a level of 3% of the total cost. So this is truly a partnership in this effort. In the intergovernmental agreement, we're talking about that no particular community will pay more than 1.5% of its total budget as we move through this effort. Why do we want to do this? Well, it's about reducing fatalities on I-10. It's about boosting our economy. It's about addressing our quality of life and the transportation needs of our Southwest Valley so that we can continue to grow as is occurring in spite of the limitations. But we got to get rid of the parking lot. And that's what we have today. It doesn't matter what time of the day many of you experience driving out there and sitting or rolling along at 20 miles an hour in a 65-mile-an-hour zone. What do we do next? Well, with the approval of the resolution tonight, then we would move forward and each of the jurisdictions would be approving the intergovernmental agreements that establishes and firms up what the resolution talks about, which is that each of us commit to the participation level, that the city of Goodyear would serve as a fiscal agent, that we in turn would then enter into agreements on behalf of all the parties with ADOT, with the MAG, in the MAG program. The State Transportation Board is meeting on April 21st, and at that time, we have the ability to receive $7.4 million, which means that we can start the final design immediately and have it completed by September of 2007 and be in a position that we can actually start construction in October of 2007. Now, the MAG Regional Council is the next big step that we take. Tomorrow, we will go as managers and take copies of our resolution forward to the MAG managers. They, in turn, will pass that information on to the Transportation Policy Committee, And on April 26th, the MAG Regional Council is going to review, and with the support we have here, I think we're on a roll to having the Regional Council support our efforts to advance the I-10 as proposed. At this time, mayors and members of councils, I am prepared to take any questions.
I'll start with Councilmember Musselwhite.
So, Mr. Cleveland, we're borrowing money from a fund, and we're paying the interest until that fund pays out, correct?
Yes, we're borrowing the money from funds that ADOT has available called the Help Loan and the Grant Anticipated Notes. We pay the interest, and on those dates that the construction was to occur, Prop 400 monies comes in and pays off the loan, pays off those capital bonds, and we no longer have to pay the interest on that particular portion of each of those segments.
And this is similar to what it has been done on the east side, where they're borrowing money to get their roads built, and then they're reimbursed in order. Is that correct?
That has happened on a number of occasions throughout the valley. Phoenix and Mesa, by example, are several that have received funding through this mechanism. And those have advanced those projects successfully.
Councilmember Mahoney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Steve, we had the 4 cities that are here tonight, but I don't see anything from the unincorporated Maricopa County, who has a large portion of this. Why are they not involved in this issue?
Mr. Mahoney, the cities have been working with the county, and we had several of the county representatives enable us to go and talk to the full board, and they have been considering a number of options, and some of those options include going to the legislature and trying to bring about some other funding sources. Their decision at the moment is not to be a participant, but we will take all comers as we move forward. That includes some of the efforts that are going on with the congressional delegation to see if there's monies that we can get from the federal government that enables us to reduce our interest participation during the course of the program. Anyone else? Yes.
You told us about the benefits, which we already knew, at least we should have. Can you give us any shortcomings, possible shortcomings from this project?
I think the benefits far outweigh the shortcomings because of the amount of interest and concern our local residents have about the risks that are involved in not taking some action. It does mean that each of our communities has to make some decisions about local funding and earmarking monies and making that commitment for the next 20 years. And out there in the year 2023 or 2020, it's in 2023 when Prop 400 monies are there to financially pay for the Buckeye portion of that. There is always that risk that we may pay a couple of extra years beyond that. And at that time, I presume we're going to be reimbursed out of Prop 500 monies. Very similar to the situation of the Loop 303 and the Loop 202 being delayed in terms of being able to make that implementation. But by this action, what I believe we would achieve is that we put ourselves first in line for getting repaid or having all the capital bonds paid off by those theoretical Prop 500 monies. And who knows, if we all live long enough, we'll see Prop 600 monies and Prop 700 monies in this state. Mr. Burrows?
You talked about reimbursement. You're talking about the bonds, not the interest. Is that correct?
The way the program is set up, the question was, what is reimbursed? It is strictly the capital funding, the capital bonds are paid off. There is no reimbursement on the interest being paid. Mr. Souza?
Thank you, Mr. Souza. Down to the deliberations that we've had over the last year and a half regarding this problem. We've heard a lot of controversy relative to the lack of federal responsibility in fessing up to the need for their help in overcoming this problem that we're dealing with today. What is the fact behind that criticism?
In Prop 400 monies is a combination of both federal money, about $8 billion, and roughly $8 billion of MAG half-cent sales tax monies. So for the next 20 years, essentially the federal monies that normally would have gone directly to ADOT for purposes of financing the various freeway projects has been pooled together in a comprehensive approach, and it's one of those unprecedented actions where we have the state and all the locals working together, pooling their money to finance all the infrastructure. Therefore, there is not a lot of extra money out there, and in fact, we have to look above the line and find monies. Otherwise, it impacts current projects planning if you are below the line. In other words, it moves a project back, and we're about finding monies above that line to minimize that risk.
Well, I know from our representatives that have been to Washington recently that the majority of our senators and our House representatives are behind this effort. And I understand they're going to do all that they can to support us in this endeavor. But at this present time, it's up to us to move this along, as I see it, as an individual. I came to this community 10 years ago, and at that time, I couldn't understand why we didn't move in this area, in the state of Arizona, as fastly as other states did. I came from Illinois, and Lord knows how many interstate highways we've had and how much federal dollars has been spent in that particular state. But the attitude here, as I understood it then and as I understand it now, if you don't build it, they won't come. Well, surprise, folks, that's the reason we're here this evening. They've come, and we have to deal with it.
Ms. Holland?
I was just concerned about the word theoretical and where we're going to get this money, and I kind of wanted to hear from you about a worst-case scenario, not getting the money, or where we would go if we commit ourselves to this.
I've had the benefit of working with 3 great managers and their staff and a series of attorneys from the other communities and our own staff looking at the circumstances. And what we've been able to do is find that each of our communities can make a choice. We can make a choice to spend monies on transportation to take care of the congestion, or we can spend it on some other programs and projects. The recommendation is coming to you is that it is worth spending those monies on this particular project. The worst case scenario based upon the formula and the cash flow that ADOT and MAG worked out is that there's a $10,500,000 cost that must be paid in the year 2010, and in 2011 there's about $9.9 million. Each of us are going to be participating in our proportionate shares on that. That is the biggest hit. What we need to do is prepare ourselves so that we have those monies on an annual basis for the long term and commit ourselves to a 20-year strategy. And I think that given the benefits that are going to be derived from this, they'll far outweigh the negatives. It will open up a lot of commerce and a lot of local development, a lot of commercial activities that probably is constrained by how do we get there and how do we get our customers to our community so that they can spend their money successfully.
Councilmember Musselwhite. But the question that she had was, what about if the money doesn't come in, I think, and I didn't really hear an answer.
Are we talking about the capital money?
Mm-hmm.
If we're talking about the capital money not being there, then it's a question of whether or not we can go and find $200 million ourselves And I think that's where we go back to the drawing board and see if we can come up with a better scenario. As we've looked at it right now, and I think that Charlie and others would basically say that was a very difficult thing to try to figure out because we are so small, we don't have the kind of assessed valuations that permit us to do it on our own and to commit our own bonding. Because if you commit that kind of bonding, then the problem is there is basically no other programs that can be done for a lot of years until we have grown substantially in each community with a lot of infrastructure, a lot of buildings that have substantial value. Is that a better answer?
That's better. A lot of us in Goodyear have talked about the possibility of doing some extreme, like toll roads or something like that. And how do you feel about that?
Toll roads, I believe, are an impossibility as it relates to this particular piece of freeway. Now, there are other segments in the Prop 400 program that might be eligible for that, such as the I-10 reliever, which is down south of MC 85, because it does not exist today. But the challenge there is it economical for somebody, a developer that would want to come in, build it in advance, and realize their return on their investment through the toll fees. The benefit, I believe, is that you got two freeways in close proximity, therefore people have choices. They can choose to use the toll road and expedite their entry in and out of the Phoenix area, or they can use the I-10, which may have the continuing congestion that it currently has.
Councilmember Mahoney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Steve, I see that we have our legislative leaders here tonight, but what specifically have they done to help in this effort? The state's got $750 million sitting there in an account. I know that a few of them have signed onto a bill that will expedite the I-17 improvements. But what are they doing for us here is what I want to know.
I think that answer is probably best left to the three individuals that are here tonight, and they might want to speak under public comment if that's appropriate, and the mayors would like to have that done. I do know that they have spent a lot of hours with us trying to come up with some solutions to this, and with ADOT and others, but I would suggest maybe we ask them to come up and speak individually if they care to do that.
I think it's a great idea.
Woody,
Well, actually, it was Dusty.
you want to invite them up?
Dusty would introduce that.
Yeah, okay. At the time that we have public comment, that would be appropriate for them to step up. Is there any other questions of me? Yes, sir.
Maybe this has been covered in the past. Being fairly new to the Avondale Council, Councilman Scott, Vice Mayor Wolf, and I were at a breakfast with Senator John Kyle a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago. At the time, I specifically asked him about I-10 being a federal highway and what kind of money could we expect from the federal government. And he said, earmarks being a dirty word in federal government right now, but he would work on getting us $5 million to get the process started. My question is, by going through with this process on our own, in some way do we limit or hurt ourselves getting federal dollars down the road?
My understanding is that he and several others are working very hard to make that happen. They recognize that we have to do this. If we wait and do not do this tonight, in effect, we cannot start construction until the year 2009 at the earliest. We'd have to go through this process all over again, or possibly wait till 2011 to start construction. And the Goodyear stretch of this whole project cannot start if the Avondale hasn't started that portion, and that starts in the year 2014. So we have to wait until 2014 to begin the Goodyear piece after the Avondale piece is under construction.
And I understand that, but I guess, and maybe I didn't hear you answer my question, but do we hurt ourselves in the future with federal dollars if we go with this right now on our own? Is there a chance that the federal government will come back and say, well, you guys are handling this fine on your own, we don't need to contribute any dollars to this at all?
I believe Mr. Mendez could probably answer that under public comment when we get to that.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Wolf.
Thank you. I'd like to take another shot, maybe a third shot, at the question that I thought Councilmember Holland was trying to ask. And that is, in your statements, you had mentioned the fact that there's a potential that maybe we're looking at Prop 500 or a later procurement of the capital funds to pay off the loan. Have we taken into account in our economic analyses the impact of Prop 400 not paying off these projects at the time that it's scheduled to pay them off, and whether that creates a greater interest burden or if the annual interest burden just continues on at a certain set rate?
If we divide the question into the three segments, I think that clearly Prop 400 monies will take care of the Avondale section and it'll take care of the Goodyear section out to Cotton Lane. The segment west of that out to SR 85, State Route 85, is the portion that is scheduled for construction in 2023. The question is, will we have to extend any of our financing beyond that? If the economic model currently says there will be a cash flow to cover that.
Okay, so there hasn't been any evaluation of what would happen if that cost model is not correct?
What the cost model suggests is that if you exceed 2023, then the local jurisdictions continue to pay their interest proportionally on that segment only until such time as there are monies to finance the capital bonds.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Cleveland, for the plan Phase 3 from Cotton Lane out to SR 85, it only shows us for 3 lanes. Is there any possibility of changing that to the 5 lanes that's scheduled, like from the 303 out to Cotton Lane? Is there a possibility of making those changes with this money?
What you're speaking to, Mr. Vice Mayor, is that under the current Prop 400 plan, it speaks specifically to only be in one additional lane.
From Cotton Lane?
Cotton Lane West. The ability to add lanes, I've never seen ADOT or anyone else turn down money. If there was the ability of developers and others who would like to advance funds for that with long-term reimbursement, i.e. the Prop 500 monies as a vehicle to do that, I think that's entirely something that we can talk to Victor and his folks and others. The roadway, as we understand it, has the capacity to ultimately be widened to 5 lanes.
Cur out to 85?
Yes.
Also on that, we have in this resolution or this IGA that's proposed that Goodyear would manage this all the way through. Now, you said that the dates would be moved up possibly as many as 11 years, 7 years. I believe you used the numbers. After it leaves, my question is after it gets to Cotton Lane, is there any way that, what part can Buckeye play in making any changes, 7 to 10 years out? How's Buckeye going to have any control of the changes that's ahead of the future there?
Changes in what sense, sir?
Well, if we have to make any improvements or changes on off-ramps and stuff like that on this that's out there in front of us, between Cotton Lane and the SR 85.
The improvements that are being considered here are strictly about the main line, and they are not related to interchanges. Interchanges can be brought forward by developer money or other sources outside of the pot of money that's being considered here tonight.
Okay. Is there any way that halfway through this, let's say that this is a 10-year project, 5 years to get it out to Cotton Lane? Is that fair? And then 5 years from Cotton Lane to SR 85? Can it get accelerated to that point?
We can go back and look at that model to see what those consequences are. What we do know is that basically to get to Cotton Lane, essentially, and that's what the Loop 303, L303 is representing.
Right.
That is in 207. The completion of that is about 209. The At that time, you begin the design at Cotton Lane of what is going to be known as the super stack, which will be the 303 and the I-10 coming together. It will take approximately 2 years of design for that, with construction currently scheduled in the year 2011, with approximately 2 years to complete that. So it comes fairly close to the 213 target, and the ability to move faster than that is really a function of that freeway-to-freeway interface, and there's a 2-mile portion of that that physically has to be moved off of the existing alignment, moved more closely to McDowell alignment. Giving you too many facts here. But there's a lot of complicating factors to try to move it faster than the 2011 or the 2013 scheduled date. But we can go back and talk to both ADOT and to MAG and see if that acceleration can happen faster. And I'm sure if there's money out there and nobody else is tapping it, we'll go back and have this kind of conversation, and we ought to come back on a regular basis and see how well we're doing.
Well, the thing I'm concerned about is that like at 2014, we'll be in the place that you guys are right now. Is that we'll have the congestion in our neighborhood with all the build-out that we'll have.
Yes, sir.
And so we'll be standing where you're standing saying, hey, we need this kind of help. Is there any way that we can set this IGA up so that we can be in the driver's seat to take it from that point and help drive this, instead of locking this in just with Goodyear driving this all the way out to the end of SR 85? Can we set it up so it can be flexible to change the guard later on down the road?
So the idea would be to have a provision in the contract that says that during the course of the contract, parties may choose to change roles in the management of this contract.
Right, because we'll be more interested in it than you will, just like, and that's where we're sitting right now, is 10 years down the road, there'll be different hats setting up here, making different decisions, and so I'd like to see some kind of stipulation or some kind of agreement in there that we can be part of that leadership.
I'm sure the attorneys can work out something for us. Any other questions?
Councilmember Burrows.
Yes.
With these added lanes, have we looked at the added traffic that's going to be there at that time? Are we going to get anywhere, or are we going to be at this same point when those lanes are done?
If I may defer that answer to Mr. Mendez, who probably can talk about traffic and capacity of lanes and things like that compared to the current condition. Anything else? I appreciate the opportunity to present on behalf of the other managers and look forward to your action this evening. Thank you very much.
At this point in time, we'll move comments from the public. I have one. Joy Cliff.
I'm not that tall. Thank you, Mayor and councils, and I agree with Larry Core. It's very nice to see this. I am Joy Clift, 203 North Neal in Litchfield Park. I know that the freeway system, it's a disaster. I've driven it. I'm fortunate I don't have to drive it anymore, but my husband does. It took him 2 hours last night to get from Tempe to here. But the solution of taking monies from our community, from each of our communities, from our community projects, and putting it into a freeway is not the answer. What about the developers? The cities of Goodyear and Buckeye and Litchfield Park and Avondale and all of them out here have let all this development happen without thinking about this long consequence, that we're stuck in traffic, that we're having fatalities, that we're having all these problems. That's not fair to take money from our community projects. Litchfield Park needs all of its money for its community projects. They struggle every year with the budget. And I'm sure all the rest of the cities did. Goodyear just passed how many millions in bonds to your taxpayers, and you're going to take money away from those projects and put it into a freeway? You need to think about this. I don't think the answer is taking money from our cities. The developers can help pay their fair share of this, the new housing, $1,000 a house, impact fees, something. I'm very disappointed in such a distinguished group that you'd want to take money out of your own community, away from your children, away from your projects, and put it into a freeway when that should have been thought of 10 years ago or even last year whenever you were letting out all the permits for these houses. Everybody signs off on them without thinking of the consequence. This is the consequence. It's now. It's today. Another 9/11 can happen. We all know that. We all hear Homeland Security daily. What happens then? The city of Litchfield Park had enough money in savings to make it through those rough times after 9/11. Does all of these cities have enough money to make it through? That's a scary thought, too. So I hope you think about your residents. Thank you.
We have a speaker, Senator Mr. Blindu.
Hi, my name is Robert Blindu. I am your state senator, and I think there's been a lot of great questions that have been asked, and I think they need to be answered. But if the answer for us is to do nothing, there's no more to be said. If the answer for us is to do something, and what has been done, and what are we going to do, and does Maricopa County do something, and how is it all going to work? Well, we don't find ourselves here tonight with representatives of MAG, the director of Department of Public Safety and Department of Transportation and ADOT and all these people here by accident. It's because a lot of people have been working on this issue for a long time. What we find ourselves in the middle of is why are the East Valley freeways so much better looking than the West Valley freeways? And we have concluded that they have worked in the past much better together than we have, and thank God we have finally found the remedy to that. I think we have the proper leadership locally here to carry us forward into the future. And thank you for your questions over there from Buckeye. I think the one thing we ought to talk about, what is the plan, A, what is the plan that we need, and B, what are we willing to do in the local communities to pay for, and whose responsibility is the rest of it? I believe that the plan ought to be, we ought to have enough freeway lanes from the stack down there to carry it all the way out to SR 85. And I know that's a federal highway, but that ought to be our plan for a very important reason. The design work gets done, the environmental impact study gets done, those kind of things take years, and we need to get that on our drawing board, and that line needs to be on out there. I think what we're wrestling with is what are the local people willing to pay for to accelerate what we can. And I can tell you that you're not working alone by yourself. We on the state level are setting money aside for those projects, and it's a battle. Just like you guys battle one another and you talk about, do we spend money on this, do we spend money on that? I have to argue whether we need all-day kindergarten or whether we should be spending on this, whether we do this or whether we do that. And our transportation money, the guy at the north wants some, the guy at the south wants some, west, east. Our job is to come up with our plan and how does it fit in with the money that we can get. I believe that the people that I serve with, and I'm proud to serve with all of you, I believe that we can get enough money set aside to get us started. But I think our plan has got to be a comprehensive one. I haven't heard any talk about the 303, and I heard a question about where is Maricopa County. I think that's a good question. They have been involved in this plan since the very start. We cannot do I-10, the stack out there, without incorporating the 303 along with it. Because if we do, we're going to spend our money once and then tear it all up in order to move it over. So we have to have a more comprehensive plan. We are talking to the county supervisors to step up to the bar, maybe passing another bond initiative, so maybe you people don't even have to do that. We do a county-wide one, and we come up with this comprehensive plan. So, you ask what we've been doing. We've been sitting down talking to Victor Mendez, who pointed out to me that there's more to building freeways than money. Where are you going to get the cement? Where are you going to get the labor? Where are you going to get this? And we've been working on those issues as well. And this gentleman right here, new Councilman Jim Buster, you ought to thank him. We're going to have a new cement plant producing cement in Drake, Arizona, thanks to him and his help at ADEQ. Those guys did a great job. And I just want to let you know there's been a lot of people involved in this, and this didn't start this evening. It didn't start last week. It started over a year ago, and that's why we find ourselves here. I'm here to let you know that whatever I can do to help you, I am willing to. Thank you. Any questions?
Yes, sir. Could you clarify, I believe you live in the county at this time?
That's correct.
Haven't you submitted a bill to, or signed on to a bill to widen I-17 from Cave Creek going up to Anthem and beyond?
Yes, I have.
And what bill did you sponsor for the West Valley at this time?
Bill for $118 million, which is going to get folded into the budget now and won't be a separate bill, so it'll be a budget item, which makes it much better for us.
The number on that bill, sir?
I don't know what the bill number is. They change.
There is a bill, though, and it has been put into the system.
There was a bill put into the system, but it's not moving forward because the $118 million on that bill, because of you people working together, that's going to be a budget item, and it won't be fought over like a bill would be fought over, where it's targeted money for here. That's going to be a budget item. That helps us. That does not hurt us.
So at this time, it's on your faith at this time?
On my faith?
Yes. It's
No.
not a bill. It's not in the budget at this time, is it? To specifically widen I-10.
We have a widening plan for I-10. That's exactly what we're working on. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about the MAG plan that you voted on, where light rail went to Phoenix, $80 million a mile. Why don't we have more freeways? Well, you know what? That was part of that same political process why we ended up with what we did. I'm here to tell you that we operate better collectively than we do separately.
I agree.
Okay, well, I'm just letting you know. I could be one vote in the Senate, or I could be one vote with all you guys helping me.
Councilmember Mahoney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you clarify then, so you're saying the state is trying to help us with $118 million and there's a bill going through at this point?
I'm trying to tell you that your comment about $750 million being a surplus is a myth. We don't have that kind of money as a surplus. Only government has debt over here and cash over there and says we have a surplus. You can't run your life like that, and I can't either. What I can tell you is there's a legitimate debate going on in the state capitol right now that says we have a freeway problem in Maricopa County. We don't have one just on the west side. Anybody tried to leave going north on a Friday evening? You tried that? Well, that's in Arizona too, and the same way with going south. And as a state senator, I have to address all of those issues. I don't have the luxury of just doing something for my district. That is prohibited in our Constitution. So what I have to vote for is a comprehensive plan that takes care of needs here, over there, and how do we use the money best effectively. And I think we're doing a pretty good job of coming up with a plan that's going to help you folks and widen I-10.
But I still haven't got an answer. What are you doing for specifically for the West Valley and I-10? That's what I want to know.
We are getting money set aside so that you, when you borrow your money, will not have to pay the interest on that money. And when the capital funding kicks in when it's supposed to because of Prop 400, you get your money back. And the only difference will be the interest paid. And the reason for that is because it's cheaper to build a freeway now than it is later. So we save that money. What I'm trying to do is get the money set aside so you won't even get your interest costs. That's what I want the general fund money for.
And how does that look right now at the legislature, what you're trying to do?
Well, I think it looks pretty good. And with John Nelson's help and with Jerry Wyer's help, I think we got more than a good chance to get it done. And we have more than a good chance to get it done because of you folks. By you getting together tonight and showing these people that we are serious, we are ready to put our own money up, that improves our chances to get that done. It puts us light years ahead of everybody else. I want to thank you for doing it.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Representative Nelson.
I got the first 25 cents to put toward the project. I'm being a little bit facetious, but I think Senator Blendu has covered a lot of the points. Let me just say there are a number of balls rolling around at the legislature at this time, and part of it Bob has talked about, but There's an effort that started with a conversation with the chairman of the House Transportation Committee, and he ran a bill for $400 million to go into help. And that bill passed the House, and it's got stuck in the Senate, and they struck that onto a Thayer Verschuur's bill, which is his seatmate, to take that and hopefully bring it back to the Senate and bring it to the House. If it comes back with the $400 million, it's my hope that we will put that in the pot, and that will be pot money that's there for those that are prepared to move forward. Yeah, I'll be very honest with you. I'm very uncomfortable in talking details because most of you have been around politics long enough to know you start with a plan, and sometimes you're looking at a butterfly and you come out with a caterpillar. On the other side, there's an issue going on now between Representative Payton and his bill that deals with impact fees and construction sales tax. And I have been meeting with both Representative Payton, Spencer Camps from the Home Builders, and we had a pretty big meeting at the League last week on this issue. I'm hoping there's some resolution coming forward that will help us on this, and I don't really want to elaborate too much at this point in time because there are moving parts. I also think, well, I'll let Representative Wire speak to his bill because they signed on to that, but I want to reiterate, there are 90 people down there that are all looking at issues that they think are important for their districts or the areas that they represent. The one thing that I've heard for the first time coming out of at least two powerhouses on the East Valley is their willingness to put money into a pot and share it. Now, I can be a little bit facetious because they got a lot of theirs out of the 1985 pot, and I happened to vote for that one at the City of Phoenix. But I think with the safeguards that we have in the plan, if we can get some money and help, and there's been some honest commitments made, that some of that money can come this way and help deal with solving this problem. And I'll be happy to answer any questions, if I can, that you might have. I'm so used to Representative Councilman Cavalier.
A question I have is, and I guess it's a roundabout. It has to do with this indirectly, but there's concern that we're taking money away from projects that we need locally to fund this widening of I-10. And the cooperation we need from the House of Representatives and from our Senate is on some of the House bills that you're now looking at, and that is the possibility of the curtailing construction tax, curtailing some of the development fees that we now enforce on our developers and bring that forward, which this is the answer to this other part of the answer to this other lady's question, and that is that these are the things that help us fund those things that we need to fund. And we're hoping that the Senate and the House of Representatives are very careful about the House bills that are facing them now concerning curtailing some of those things. The bills have been brought forth to you by the, trying to think of the organization, the Home Builders Association. The Home Builders Association that will curtail some of the funding that the cities will need by either taxation or funds that we get from the developers. So we would hope we'd get your cooperation on that, and I hope that you and the Senator would look into that. Thank you.
I think mayors and Councilman Cavalier, that's part of the issue that I talked about in the construction tax and the impact fees that I've been working on for the last probably 3 weeks, 4 weeks since that bill first came out. And I hope we can come to some reconciliation on that. There are some pretty stiff standards that have been set forth. Hopefully in talking with at least the sponsor of the striker and the home builders, there is some yielding, but this is a two-way process. I mean, some of the issue is partly created by some of the things that the cities have done. On the other side, I've had meetings with developers in the Buckeye area and with Buckeye staff working on trying to come together with a plan there. And I think I'm out of that now, Carol. I think you guys are working with Meg and are on their own. But there's cross-talk going on when we talk about developers who are willing to give rights of way and build some of the roads, and then at the same time talk about new impact fees or new construction taxes. So we have to be careful as a group that we're communicating with each other, because we can cause one of the other cities to stumble if we go too far afield from everybody knowing what they're doing and being willing to work together. That's part of we don't know about it. You know, we have somebody come in with a bill and say, well, we need this or we need that. I will say the same thing that I've said, that Senator Blendu said, and that we have been working on this for a long time, and I think we've been working with all of the cities out here on trying to come up with something that will work for everybody, recognizing that we represent all of you and that our interests are not necessarily focused on just one city. Other comments or questions?
Thank you, Representative.
Thank you very much.
Representative Wires?
Good evening. My name is Jerry Wires, representative. I don't know what else I can say that hasn't already been said. I can tell you what I personally have done. I met with several of you in city council meetings. I introduced a bill at the time that we thought possibly the cities were going to go to their voters and ask them to increase their sales tax. I introduced a bill that would in fact have taken $5 million per year for the next 5 years and matched funds with what the cities themselves were raising. I can tell you I was very disappointed in how that went. It got held up in Transportation Committee. I had invited all the mayors to come down with the City Council. They came into the hearing. The bill had a hearing, and it was refused to vote. And I apologize to the mayors that came down there for that. I felt very bad to the fact that that happened. One thing I think everyone needs to keep in mind is that the two transportation chairs in the Senate and in the House share the same district. They're East Side guys. One thing they've been able to do over the years, East Side's been able to do, is work together. And I can't tell you how incredibly excited I am to see this group of people here tonight. What you're doing here tonight is you're showing that we have strength, we have a voice, and that we can accomplish something. But it does take everybody working together for the common goal. One of the things that I think everybody needs to understand: if you cut your arm, if you literally cut a vein, you don't wait for the ambulance to show up to fix it, because you're going to die. You stop the bleeding right then. When they show up, then they can go ahead and fix it. The problem we have right now is we have a freeway that's not moving. I would love to have the problem that Scottsdale has with photo radar. They're going so fast over there, they're trying to slow them down. We don't have that problem. I would love to have that problem. Absolutely love to have. Maybe this will solve this in a few years. Maybe we would have that situation. I can assure you that Senator Blendu, Representative Nelson, and myself are doing everything we can. I was asked the other day, we're just starting our meetings as far as the budget, and they're asking all the representatives, and I'm sure in the Senate probably the same, what do you want? What do you need? What's it going to take to make certain that you're happy? And as everybody was talking about the budget, I wrote very small at the top of the page, freeway, and underneath that a little bit bigger, and by the time I got to the bottom it was about this big, and I just held it up and I said, this is what I want. I want freeways. This is the only thing that's important to me. This is the number one thing in the West Valley, that it's a lifestyle. We have none. If you're going to work 3 hours early to get to work and it takes you 3 hours to get home, it's a quality of life issue. It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. And I agree with the earlier testimony that the federal government should be paying for it. Sure they should. But do we bleed to death before we start fixing it? No. I don't think that we can afford to do that. You have my assurance that I will do everything I possibly can for freeways. Interstate 10, number one. I think Senator Blendu said earlier there's 90 people down there. He was incorrect. There's 91. There's one more person in there that we have to appease also. It's not a simple fix. If you can imagine at your city council, if you have 7 members or 5 or however whatever size your city council member is, try getting the same thing that you're trying to get through with 91 people instead of 5 or 7. It's a tremendous battle for us. I can assure you we're all here tonight because we understand the importance of this. I don't know if I can answer your question. I'm a freshman. I'm the brand new guy. But I can assure you I'll do everything I can to address this problem for you.
Thank you, Representative.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I do have a question.
I'm sorry, Representative.
Thank you. Jim Buster, City of Avondale. Representative Wires, as Senator Blendu had said, there is a possibility that there are ongoing negotiations right now to maybe get some of that state money, that what some folks are calling a surplus, out to some of these various projects, not only on the west side, I suppose, but around Maricopa County. And I'm assuming those are parts of ongoing negotiations and which could culminate in some type of a budget in the next 2-3 weeks, something like that. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I agree with you. First of all, the surplus, I think Senator Blendu said it earlier, you know, and what I keep telling people, if I have $1,000 in my checking account and I owe $1,000 in my pickup truck, I don't have a surplus. It just doesn't happen. If I have 0 debt and I have money sitting over here, then I have a surplus. We have a lot of things that have to be paid for in past years, and all of you folks understand how that works. We have more money than what we thought we were going to have. It's still not a surplus. We have to figure out how to wisely spend that, get what our citizens need, first of all. I'm not sure exactly how to answer your question because you kind of went around like this.
I've just heard rumors that there could be some money from the state level just through the budgetary process to put towards some freeway projects.
As long as you folks keep the pressure up, we'll find the money somewhere. We're not going to stop until we get this problem resolved. If you, in fact, do this tonight, and I certainly encourage all of you to do this, I hope, in fact, that's what happens. If, in fact, we can come up with money later or the federal government comes up with money, I certainly don't know why we couldn't buy that interest down early and keep those projects moving forward. I don't think that a question was brought up earlier, what if you do this, the federal government's going to bow out? I don't believe that's going to happen at all. I think what you might do is encourage them to do something because, in fact, now you folks are showing your colors and that you really want this and you're willing to step forward and make it happen.
And I would assume the legislature would feel the same way.
Is that it? Thank you for letting me speak tonight.
ADOT Director Victor Mendez.
Good evening, everyone. For the record, my name is Victor Mendez. I'm the director at ADOT, the Arizona Department of Transportation. Just a couple of observations and comments, maybe. I think it's important for all of us to understand the importance of what you're doing here really may be historic for the West Valley. You have an opportunity here to really create a partnership, to really, in the long run, I know we talk about infrastructure. It takes time. You can't do it overnight. There's a lot of studies, a lot of detail that goes into actually delivering infrastructure. But I think in the end, if you keep your eyes on the prize, as many people would say, basically what we're trying to do here is to benefit your residents. You can talk about it in terms of safety, as Mr. Cleveland mentioned, safety, the economy, the quality of life of your residents. So I think we can move forward in a positive manner. It benefits everybody out here in the West Valley. There have been a couple of elements that have been discussed with regard to budgets, and Mr. Wires mentioned there are actually 91 people out there that you have to appease. The one person happens to be my boss, Governor Napolitano. And I would like to mention to you that within her budget proposal at the state level, she has in fact proposed $118 million to pay back into the transportation fund. These were funds that were used a couple of years ago, maybe 2-3 years ago, when there were huge deficits. And in trying to balance the budget, the legislature and the governor had to use funds from other sources to balance out. At that point in time, they utilized about $118 million, and so now she's proposing to pay that back. In addition, she's also proposing a couple of elements. She's going to lower the amount of transportation dollars that are used to fund the Department of Public Safety Highway Patrol activities by $40 million. So she's putting back that into transportation. And then in addition, for fiscal 07 only, she's proposing another $40 million as again, a lowering of that DPS support only for DPS. So in essence, you have some long-term paybacks that the governor is putting back on her budget proposal. And if you believe that funding for transportation is important for now and for the future, then I would ask you to once again support those proposals from the governor, because I think they're extremely important for us with regard to the issues of funding and resources that are available for transportation. So with that, I guess I would encourage all of you to keep your eyes on the prize. Let's move forward. There's a lot of issues out there. I know I work in state government. I am a director for a state agency, and there are tremendous transportation needs out there. Whether you go to Yuma, Flagstaff, Prescott, you name it, we face very similar issues. So we're not unique. We're unique in the magnitude, but beyond that, I can tell you the transportation needs in Arizona, and as I speak to my peers on a national basis, the needs are out there. They're incredible from an infrastructure standpoint. So if you look at it not only from a state standpoint and a national standpoint, some really significant needs in terms of what transportation does for the economy on a national basis. Safety is very important. If you look at statistics on a national basis, 43,000 people die per year on our freeways. That's not good. So we need to do something about that. So with that, I just kind of give you a broad brush of some of the issues we're facing, and I would open it up for questions if you have any.
Mr. Mendez. It was said earlier about the focus on the freeways. When I was with Transportation Policy Committee, we studied freeways quite a bit, and I was wondering if you could share in just a few minutes some of the experience the state has had, not only with the Paradise Parkway, but with getting the 202 alignment through Ahwatukee, and some of the discussions you've had on the proposed I-10 reliever and some of the resistance we've seen with that.
Mayor, very good question. I think the issues you raised probably are some of the more controversial issues that we may have faced here under the current freeway system that we're still implementing. Obviously, I think as we move forward, we do have some lessons that we've learned from the past. I think it's important to recognize what we have done with the freeway system here in the Valley is fairly unique on a national basis. We're actually retrofitting a freeway system into an already urbanized area. So that really presents some very unique situations for us that we have to deal with. So it's important for us to work collectively, come to the table, and try and address some of these more fundamental issues with regard to land use planning, transportation planning. How do we better coordinate all of this with all the stakeholders at the table? I've heard about the developers and of course elected officials, state agency, the legislators. I mean, we all have to be at the table to really come up with some new ideas as to how you implement a transportation system. Because if you really think about it, the processes that we currently have in place really have been in place for decades. We're trying to build a system for the future, and I think one of the challenges that we all face is what do we need to do for the future? And I can tell you that the governor in the next week or so will be unveiling some new thoughts, ideas with regard to the future of Arizona with respect to growth and infrastructure.
Thank you. Any further questions? Yes, yes.
Mr. Mendez, I guess we've heard quite a few numbers discussed regarding the amount of interstate commerce travel or even commerce travel within the Phoenix metropolitan area that's on Interstate 10. I was just wondering if you may have any idea of the percentage of what traffic on Interstate 10 through our reach actually is generated from our localities, or how much of it is interstate in nature or major heavy commerce. If you don't have an answer tonight, you don't have to give me one, but I certainly would like to see if someone in the department could give me an idea of that.
Yes, sir. I can't see your name, so excuse me there. I don't have it off the top, but we certainly have that information, can get that, or I don't know if maybe Mag may have that here later today, but we certainly can get that.
I would appreciate that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
No, not of Mr. Mendez, no.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Cleveland?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, a couple of my colleagues thought it was appropriate to address a question that was earlier raised about why did we not use impact fees. A part of that answer is that approximately 10% of the travel on the freeway can be directly attributed to the local municipalities. Therefore, there's a principle in law that talks about a nexus. And if you can't show a relationship between your local community and the benefit being derived, you cannot have an impact fee that is greater than the benefit. So essentially, we would only be able to collect on $1,000, you'd only be able to collect $100 towards the purpose that you wanted to. And thus, you need to find other alternative sources. And what we've packaged together this evening is the best solution at the moment. But we see the federal monies, the state monies, and a lot of other sources coming together to ultimately benefit the entire community. Thank you.
And Mayor Hall and Mayor Thomas, I see that the next item on this agenda is to call for a vote on these resolutions by the respective councils. I have a question about the Litchfield Park resolution, and I want to make sure that I could bring that up before I vote on it.
Yes, you can. We will have a time for discussion on the question, on the motion.
Unless there are any further comments, this portion is closed.
Thank you. We will now have the resolution read from the Avondale City Attorney by title only.
Yes, Madam Mayor. It's resolution number 2600-406, a resolution of the Council of the City of Avondale, Arizona, committing local funds to accelerate the construction of Interstate 10 transportation improvements, authorizing the City of Goodyear to act as fiscal agent for the other Southwest Valley cities and towns of Avondale, Buckeye, and Litchfield Park, and providing for a sunset of the committed local funds.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
Mayor, I move we approve the resolution.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Lynch and a second from Vice Mayor Wolf.
At this point in time, would the city attorney read, or Buckeye read the resolution?
Mayor, members of the council, resolution number 1606, a resolution of the mayor and council of the town of Buckeye, Maricopa County, Arizona, committing local funds to accelerate the construction of Interstate 10 transportation improvements, authorizing the city of Goodyear to act as fiscal agent for the Southwest Valley cities and towns, Avondale, Buckeye, Litchfield Park, and providing for a sunset of the committed local funds.
With the resolution read, is there a motion?
I move to accept resolution 1606.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second.
For the City of Goodyear, I'd like to ask the clerk if she would please read the resolution by title only, please.
Resolution 2006-1034, a resolution of the Mayor and Council of the City of Goodyear, Maricopa County, Arizona, committing local funds to accelerate the construction of Interstate 10 transportation improvements, authorizing the City of Goodyear to act as fiscal agent for other Southwest Valley cities and towns, Avondale, Buckeye, Litchfield Park, and providing for a sunset of the committed local funds.
Okay, thank you. Could I have a motion?
Motion to accept resolution number 2006-1024 as read by the clerk.
Second motion. Have a motion from Councilmember Scott and a second from Councilmember Souza.
For procedural purposes, we do not require the reading of the resolution by title or otherwise. At this time, I'll entertain a motion. Vice Mayor Faith.
It's wonderful to see all the four cities here cooperating in this venture we've got going here. The resolution in the form that's been presented by Buckeye and Avondale obligates the cities to negotiate with the other three cities. I think the Goodyear resolution is slightly different. I believe we should encourage our staff to negotiate also. I would move that we adopt this resolution 06-226, but deleting paragraph 4 to make it in line with what Buckeye and Avondale have motioned.
I have a motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, the motion was made by Vice Mayor Faith, seconded by Councilmember Mahoney.
I have a question.
Motions and seconds have been made, and we'll open it for discussion from Avondale City Council first. Any discussion? I ask to call for a vote if the city clerk would call roll call, please.
Mayor Rogers?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Wolf?
Aye.
Councilmember Lynch?
Aye.
Councilmember Buster?
Aye.
Councilmember Scott?
Aye.
Councilmember Weiss?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
A motion and a second has been made by the town of Buckeye. On this, I'll ask the clerk for a roll call vote.
Mayor Hall?
Excuse me, I apologize. This is open for discussion with the council. Are there any questions or discussion in this matter? With no discussion, I'll ask the clerk to read a roll call vote, please.
Mayor Hall?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Erweiler?
Aye.
Councilman Meck?
Aye.
Councilman Beard?
Aye.
Councilwoman May?
Aye.
Councilman Doster?
Aye.
Councilman Garza?
Aye.
The motion passed.
Now within Goodyear, the motion is open for discussion. Seeing no discussion, I'd ask the clerk for a roll call vote, please.
Vice Mayor Cavalier?
Aye.
Councilmember Sousa?
Aye.
Councilmember Antoniak?
Aye.
Councilmember Scott?
Aye.
Councilmember Holland?
Aye.
Councilmember Lord?
Aye.
Mayor Kavanaugh?
Aye.
Passed 7-0.
Okay, we have a motion on the table, but before we get there, I would like to recognize Mayor-elect Thomas Schoaf and Councilmember-elect Marcy Ellis in our audience for the next City of Litchfield Park Council. With that, I did want to start off with some discussion as far as the TPC. There have been many questions that were raised tonight. I was on the original governance task force, which then morphed into the Transportation Policy Committee and how we got to today. I'm pleased with your votes, and maybe I don't need to make the point, but I did want to reinforce that MAG had gone through quite a learning process with Prop 300 and the 85 half-cent sales tax. That experience and knowledge and understanding has come forward to the Proposition 400 that we proposed and put forth today. There's been a lot of discussion on whether it was good, bad, or otherwise, but I can tell you that with the efforts of the West Valley, we wanted to make sure that those commitments that were made in 1985 were honored. This is some of the concern and frustration I have with our legislature, is that they seem to not recognize that the West Valley has been paying taxes since 1985. And in the case of the I-10 widening, the I-10 reliever, we'll be waiting till 2020 to get started. It won't be finished until 2025. When I see Legislative District 12 members supporting a bill to widen I-17 north to accommodate Anthem, which we felt at MAG was poor planning on behalf of the county, as well as going south, that really does just up the bar for us. And yet I couldn't agree more with Representative Weyer's comments that we're not going to wait for the ambulance to show up. We need to take action right now and move forward. And with that, I would like to thank the representatives from Legislative District 12. As you see, I've been a little harsh on them tonight, and yet I do recognize that of all the legislators that serve the West Valley, these three have come to our table to hear it from us tonight. And so I do honor them and thank them for their ability to withstand that. The other item, which is a major consideration, and this is what concerns me about the legislature, is that when we were starting these conversations, it's up to each community to figure out how they're going to pay for each one of these items. Litchfield Park is different than the other communities in how our tax structure is set up and established. We need to have full flexibility in order to impose any new sales taxes that we might find. The idea of the impact fees is a grave concern because of the causation requirements in that legislation, which is appropriate in my mind. And yet sales tax attributed directly to new construction is fully within our council's decision and our council's authority. And I would hope that our council will fully exercise those processes. Again, the only bill that I have seen in place is for I-17 and for Queen Creek. And so again, with that, any other discussion in the council? Councilmember Musselwhite.
Yes, I'm strongly in favor of the sentiment behind this, but I'm troubled by one section here. I don't think this is any different than what's been done on the east side for about 10 years. and I think it's great that we can all get together. I really appreciate being a part of what I consider to be a historic event. But in Section 2, it says the City of Litchfield Park will commit local funds in amounts and according to the terms and conditions set forth in the anticipated intergovernmental agreement between the municipalities to pay a portion of the accelerated costs associated with moving the target area improvements up to the 2007-2010-11 MAG TIP. And the only thing that I can find, I know an intergovernmental agreement is coming, but the only thing that I can find that limits our expenses is a footnote in the PowerPoint here where it says that each party, which is talking about each city, will not exceed 1.5% of their respected annual operating costs. I'd feel very comfortable if we could add that to our motion between the municipalities, limited to 1.5% of total operating budget. It would make me feel that I am not issuing a blank check, which could come back and haunt us later.
I think that is a friendly amendment. Does the motion, or does the mover accept that amendment?
I'd like our city attorney to confirm, but looking at Section 2, all this really is an agreement to agree in the future and probably not binding in any respect.
It is an agreement to agree in the future if you can reach an agreement. This is no more this is this is in the future.
Sorry, guys, you got lawyers talking.
This is not an approval of an intergovernmental agreement. It is a statement of intent to negotiate. If you cannot ultimately come to a conclusion, to an agreed-upon conclusion, it does not bind you to go any further than you've negotiated.
And Councilman Musselwhite, I'm not comfortable adding something that says we will stick 1.5% into this because we may be committing to the 1.5%. The way it's written now, we're not committed to anything.
Okay, that makes sense. So we're agreeing to agree. We're going to work. The devil's still in the details.
Definitely.
Okay. That's all I have.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask the city clerk for a roll call vote.
Mayor Thomas?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Faith?
Aye.
Councilmember Burrows?
Aye.
Councilmember Mahoney?
Aye.
Councilmember Musselwhite?
Aye.
With that, the motion carries unanimously.
And now that the votes have been taken, will Mayor step to the center of the room to sign the resolutions.
Oh, you want to agree to sign? You sign to agree? Oh, yeah. Should we get Andrew? Yeah, should we get Andrew to counsel?
What is this historic?
I'll be there tomorrow.
They shouldn't have had me in China.
No, I saw that. That's
And we'll tax everything by
What's that? He's my buddy. It's my This is good. This is good.
Appreciate the council's efforts from the Avondale City Council, and thank you for attending the meeting is adjourned.
And for Buckeye, I too have been misled. I welcome two city council members, David Artsy and Dave Rios, who will be
The city of Litchfield Park stands adjourned.